word our wonderful moderator, Lina Ashar, founder, Korroboree International Online School, and of course, Vice President, Early Childhood Association. Welcome, Lina.
Never forget to say that.
I will always say that. We swear by ECM.
Vice President ka bolna hi padega.
Vice President, Early Childhood Association. Wonderful to have you with us. And I'd like to now invite our panelists, Aditya Tapadia, Jumpstart International School, Pune, Kaiser, Bhat. Let's say, why did you stop clapping? Come on. Yes. Kaiser, Bhat, Director, Orange International, and ECA Territory Head, Jammu and Kashmir for J&K. That's amazing. See, the moderators go energy than all of you put together. And then we have Harsha, Ramaiya, Director, Small Wonders, and Core Committee Member, Early Childhood Association. And the wonderful and elegant Manobi, Deka, Proprietor, Sparsh Group of Schools, and Early Childhood Territory Head, Northeast. Welcome, Manobi.
Manobi, where to go?
Mics. We need 2 mics. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I know I've taken up your tea time and coffee time.
But they're getting it,
They're not getting it. So they're like, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So Swati's given me a topic that's been very, very close to my heart. In 1993, I started the first Kangaroo Kids as an inclusive school. I was born with disabilities. I was born with dislocated hips, and I've had multiple leg surgeries. So I think it comes with the territory that if you've been affected, then you want to make sure you affect others. Many of you have come to me through the conference and said you've been following my gratitude posts, but none of you know how the gratitude posts started. 2 years ago, we're 3 siblings and we're very, very close. My younger brother found out that his son has got a rare genetic disease called ADNP. And it devastated everyone, it devastated me. And then I knew I had to start reframing and changing my narrative, and that's actually in Australia is when my gratitude post started as a way for me to cope with what was going on. Today we see Ty, my nephew, as very different. We think he's the glue in the family. I have to keep counseling my brother that if there's anyone who's happiest in this world, it's Ty, because he's always in the moment, he's always present. And if we all focus on a strengths-based approach and not deficits, I think we could do a lot for kids. So it's always been my hope that we start looking at, developing human potential rather than meeting instructional objectives. And I'd love to start seeing report cards that don't have can do, cannot do, but everything that just says can do, can do, can do, can do. It doesn't matter what we can't do. I ran an organization, I can't do math, but it doesn't matter. We do what we can and we support ourselves for what we cannot do. So, yes, it's a very, I'm going to start off with asking Harsha a question. Harsha, as I just said, my nephew has a condition known as ADNP. Only 300 kids in the world have it, so in a way we won the lottery. And it's a complex neurodevelopmental disorder. Would we term him as neurodivergent? Is there an official definition of neurodivergent?
So basically, before answering that question, I think we need to understand what is neurodiversity. So basically, if we separate these 2 words, neuro and diversity, neuro means something that is related to brain, and diversity, that is something which is different than usual. So neurodiversity is something where your brain functions or processes or executes anything which is different rather than which is usual. So not terming it as an odd, but of course it is different. So here ADNP is a clinical or a medical term, so I'll have to read it. It's activity dependent neuroprotective protein. So we won't go deep into it, but definitely I feel that yes, it is the neurodivergent thing that is happening. So to understand that, we'll have to definitely deep down and understand what is neurodiversity. So being a teacher, being an educator, I think in classrooms today we have children who are neurodiverse. So sessions like these will definitely help us understand how to help these children. Thank you.
So Manobi, I've always sort of worked out that early intervention. I've taken borderline autistic children and they've performed at very, very high functioning levels. So is early intervention important? And if it is so, because most of our teachers are not trained to cope with neurodiversity, what could we do as an educational community to increase awareness to parents? Because parents may not know whether they have a neurodiverse child either. And is there a way of identifying if we have a neurodivergent child in our classroom? And is there access to early intervention?
Thank you for the question. Early intervention, of course, is a very, very important thing which every educator should be aware about. And why early intervention is important, let me elaborate. As educators, we all know that optimum brain development takes place in the early years before the age of 6, right? And here, when we are talking of neurodivergent children, neuro means nerves, related to nerves. It's a Greek word. So anything related to brain, if stimulated early, can bring about the changes, desired results early. And when we educators collaborate with special educators and implement IEPs, that is individualized education plans in schools, if done early, we get desired results very fast. And as educators, we shoulder a huge responsibility of making the parents aware about the differences of the children, and we have to also make the teachers aware about it, because as early years educators, we only are going to bring about the changes in the child if it is neurodivergent from early years. So we have to not only counsel our teachers, not only the parent of the neurodivergent child, but the entire parent community in our school. I'm sure as educators, you all have come across some parents who come up with request of change of seat, sometimes, and sometimes change of section even. Why? They come and say that my child is being disturbed by another child, so I want to change the section of my child. Usually, we also tend to tag children, and peers also tag a child. This mostly the ADHD children suffer from tagging, because they are restless, they are they cannot concentrate for a longer period of time, and whether they commit the mistake or not, whether they do the mischief or not, the peers tend to tag him, and they go home and narrate the stories, which is why parents come up with such requests. So what I make sure in every parent-teacher meeting from the 3+ onwards, I talk to all the parents in general about acceptance. And if we want inclusion, we have to tell every parent to accept a neurodivergent child in the school. And we also have to tell to make their children aware about acceptance. They cannot tag their peer in the class. They have to accept, and we all together, the parent, teacher, and the peers can collaborate together and bring about changes. And you were also talking about identification. There are certain red flags which we can observe. I think all teachers should be aware about it. First is the eye contact. If the child doesn't have the eye contact, it is a thing to worry. You have to worry. Hand flapping is another thing which we observe in some children. Speech delay, eye-hand coordination is something absent in a neurodivergent child. When we are talking about neurodivergent children, they can be an ADHD child, an autistic child, and now it is no more autistic child. It is under the huge umbrella of ASD, that is Autism Spectrum Disorder, where the Asperger's syndrome is also included. And we have LD children also. So all educators, I urge all of you to be aware about it. What is an LD child? It can be a child with dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. There are so many things we should be aware about. I was not a special educator. I'm not a special educator now also, but I have put in sincere efforts to learn about all of them.
Thank you so much. That taught me a lot. Kaiser, I'd like to ask you the next question. You know, they say through your pain comes your gift. So as a family, we've pledged, I was just given 1.2 million to UC Davis, University of California, for research into neurodiversity. Are you aware of what research is being done in this area of like what causes autism and other neurodiverse sort of development disorders, and whether there are sort of cures being worked on?
Actually, what I'm not also a special educator, but whatever I have, gathered experience or something, there's a lot of research has been done and a lot of research is already going on. And it's like what they have concluded with this, like it's the autism, why autism is happening. It's mostly the stress has been put upon on genetics, and then maybe trauma at birth, and infectious disease. They are the main reasons out of that whole research what would cause the autism. And now I just want to add over here this Manobi's this addition to that. Now after that, what would be the cure for that? There's no yet complete cure for that. But there are some therapies, very advanced therapies like behavioral therapies, educational therapies. They have been designed like that. If it could be identified and it could be applied during the early years, and it can be managed. Neurodiversity can be managed at the early years because when it's an educational therapy, when there's an educational therapy, the structured curriculum has been also designed for by special educators, how to talk to the people, how to behave, how to communicate with the other people. And then there is some medications also, because what it has been observed, like for this neurodiversity people, they are sometimes like hypersensitivity are there, and maybe they are too common to consultation and all that, which can be done by doctors and medical practitioners. They can this, but overall in the research there is only it can be managed, but it cannot be completely cured.
Very, very good answer. Aditya's come late to the game. So when I started an inclusive school in 1993, I actually called it special needs. And special needs, we all used it very, very, very freely. When I was in Australia right now and talking to doctors about Thai's condition, I was told that I have to stop using the term special needs, and that we have to eliminate that from our vocabulary altogether. And they've asked me to use terms like disabled instead. So I have to say that Thai is mentally disabled. Do you believe the terminology matters, Aditya?
I personally feel that more than personality, what we put into actions is very important. And we as leaders here really need to put something in action. I was just researching the other day that more than research done by Deloitte in 2020 states that in India it is expected about 20% of the children are having certain disabilities. And that means that's quite a big amount of numbers of children who are coming into our classrooms with disabilities. So we as educators really, it is not whether you are trained as a special educator or not, we all need to know how to identify the red flags and probably get good assistance to that children who really need it. On the ASD spectrum, what you were mentioning, in India, 1 out of 7 children are on that spectrum. So that's quite a big number. In a classroom, 3 to 4 children would be on that spectrum. So if our teachers are able to actually read the flags properly, I think, and if we are able to, as leaders, train teachers how to get that, I think that would be better. Is what I think.
Thank you. Going from what Aditya just said, Harsha, 3 to 4 kids in a classroom, if they're on the spectrum, what does it look like to teach a neurodivergent group of kids? I mean, what are the challenges of doing that, and what can assessment look like for a neurodivergent child?
So basically in a class we have a group of say 25 children. 20 years back, I would give an example of myself. Whenever we had an inquiry of a child who's little differently able, we used to deny for the admission because हम उसको handle नहीं कर पाते थे. But then attending seminars like these, we came to know that inclusion really works better for the development. So we started taking admissions. But the story doesn't end there, you know. When we take an admission of a child who's little differently abled or needs special attention, the teacher has to be trained. So it's quite a long thing. So it's not an impossible thing, but we need to have that kind of a training with our teachers to understand the need of these children, because these children react and respond to different things at different point of time. Their excitement level, their behavior is slightly different. So here I would say that now, post-pandemic, I myself have witnessed that if I have a class of 20, earlier I had 1 or 2, but now I have at least 6 to 8 children who are slightly different or differently abled in terms of these disorders that we are speaking. So here I think the teacher has to be very, very vigilant. The instructions that are given in the classroom otherwise also has to be broken into pieces, because these children don't understand anything that is given in length. So the teacher has to give an individualistic approach in terms of expectation as well, because a normal child will do an activity, say 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes, but this child will take a little longer. So I think we'll have to understand how we are expecting in the classroom from the child. A lot of training will go in this, and I think that trainings only will help, because identifying is a separate thing, teaching in the classroom is a separate thing. So here the teacher herself has to go a little mile extra to do whatever she's doing in the classroom.
So just a quick follow-up question to you, Harsha. What do you feel contributes to this increase in neurodiversity? Is it just awareness, or do you think that there's some contributing factors and anyone can sort of help with that answer?
So personally what I feel is that there are a lot of factors that contribute in the increase. If we go back and look at the researches, it says sometimes during the pregnancy, if the mother is, malnutrition, that is one of the factors. Genetics is another factor. Sometimes immune disorders are the factors. So there are multiple factors. But now I think, as I have seen the classrooms, inclusion is going to be the next. Because in 2025 strength, there are going to be 8 to 10 children who are going to be there.
So then my next question is to Manobi, because you're a proprietor of the group of schools, right? So I'm sure that whether you have an investor or not, the money math matters somewhere. So how does practicing neurodiversity sort of affect the financial outcomes of a school? If you could sort of speak to us about that.
When you're talking about my group of schools, we started in 2007, and from 2008 itself I started taking children who are neurodivergent. Then people used to call them special children, and there were some foolish people also who came to me and asked me, "Ma'am, सुना है आपका school abnormal बच्चों का school है?" I was furious, and I said, "What do you mean by that? They are specially able children. Do not use that term for them. Like you said, we need to check our vocabulary. How hurt the parents would be when we speak about their child in that manner." So I wasn't bothered when you said we have to talk about the investment and all. We had a very close connection with the parents, And believe me, till 2015, I think I never have put a hoarding. I don't remember I have advertised for my school. But every school, every branch has 120 children in them. But what we did, we only were empathetic with each and every child, whether it is neurodivergent or not. So we always work in close parity with the parent and talk to them that about a shadow teacher. I know it is very difficult in a class of 20. We have one teacher, along with that we have a helper teacher also, supporting teacher also. And the teacher would definitely not be able to do justice to the special child or the neurodivergent child with so many children. Already other children are also equally restless. So we request for a shadow teacher and then talk to the parents. They do agree, and we have a shadow teacher. And children who are neurodivergent, they always go for therapy classes. They come to school alternate days, or maybe they take an early departure and go away. So that shadow teacher remains for that period of time only, so that we can execute whatever activities we do in a proper way. And teachers, do you think it is legitimate to exclude a child in a school picnic just because he is a special child? We cannot do that. We cannot ask a parent that don't send your child today. Today we have an activity day in the school. Today we have a annual function in the school. Don't send your child to the school. How bad the parent would be. Already the parent is stressed. So we always keep a shadow teacher for those children, and they are countable of them, not many. And before taking the child in the school, we also do an assessment. We send them to, we are working with various agencies like NIPSIT, National Institute of Public Cooperation in Child Development, since 2008. Then there is Astitva. It works for children who have speech delay. We have Mind India, also work with children who have various issues. They have got ADHD or they are in spectrum disorder or anything. Then we have Deaf Children Foundation, Vani, and we have also Sishu Sarathi, which works with cerebral palsy and various other issues with children. We are fortunate that we are connected with so many of them. And we send them for early intervention.
So it's beautiful that you're the proprietor, and you obviously have a lot of empathy and emotional intelligence, so you're inclusive. A lot of very large chain preschools around have sort of private equity at the top. So how important, and I'm going to ask this to Aditya, how important do you think is it for the school investor? Because the school investor and the school owner may be two different people. How important do you think it's for the school investor, the person who actually has the money, to believe in inclusion, for it to have a positive effect all through the school in terms of implementation by the team?
I don't think it really makes a difference, very honestly, because currently in corporates also there has been a certain amount of percentage which has been kept for neurodivergent employees. In fact, we should be more focused on making sure that our class is more inclusive, so the other children are also more sensitive towards any neurodivergent children in their class. Otherwise, generally what the environment we see in the corporate is that people are not really accepting special children or neurodivergent children. In fact, moving forward, we will see corporates like Microsoft, Infosys, all have a policy saying they need to at least have 3 to 4% of neurodiverse employees in their workforce. And I think this is just getting better in the entire corporate world, where the acceptance of special children is there. So I think we are moving in the right directions. I think we at early years just need to make sure our classrooms are ready. Our children are also very sensitive towards the other children who are there in the entire classroom.
This can be taken by anyone. Anyone providing special training in classroom management techniques, to handle a neurodiverse classroom, and what does that kind of look like?
Actually, this is what I was observing over there. There are some organizations who are, providing the trainings, and they are just giving the structural information about how to manage all the things. But during this, I just want to share with everybody over there, because there are some educators over here who are running individual schools and all that, and they come across with kids like, with neurodiversity things. But what has been completely, stressed upon is whosoever, whether it's an individual, because I really appreciate Manobi has said, like, she is working with so many organizations, and this is what has been, advised for a local, you can say local branded schools, if they are receiving such kinds of kids and all that, but they are just putting up a normal teacher to, interact or to, be with that child and all that, which is actually very serious thing, because at the early stage, this is where you can identify this autism and you can manage it very well. So what has been, stressed upon is like there should be a trained teacher, at least, like she said, the shadow teacher. Shadow teacher should always be well trained, and she should be like, well aware about the whole management of these kids. Second thing, I forgot what you said.
So I was asking about if there's training for teachers, what does that sort of look like? Not teachers are not the special educators, most of them, when they come into a classroom. Right. So what specific training can you provide?
The training, there are some trainers into that, but before that, Harsha ma'am has already said how to identify, this is like, they are very poor in eye contact, they are very poor in eye contact, they are babbling at the age of like, at the 12 months, and there is no single word vocabulary at the 24 months, 26 months, no two-word phrases by 2 plus 2, 3. All these things need to be, monitored and judged at the beginning.
So now we have identified, right? Now, neurodiversity is so diverse,
right,
that you could have 5 children in a classroom who have needs, and each one's needs could be really different. So
right,
I think I'd love for all of us to learn what is the specific training you can give. Identification we've done. Identification can be a set of processes and documents that teachers fill out. After that, what? Does anyone? Yes, please.
Yes.
I'll tell what I practice. So what happens, like in my class in nursery, there are 3 children. So after the classroom finishes, all the teachers discuss about the behavior of these 3 children. So I think that discussion table makes other teachers also understand how to be sensitive towards, because tomorrow if she has to encounter such kind of a child, it will help them. So I think the discussion within the staff members, shadow teacher of course is going to work, trainings of course is going to work, but the practical ground is going to be a little different, because day-to-day activities, day-to-day responses of that particular child is going to be different. So I think those staff meetings after the classroom ends really works wonders for our classes. Thank you.
So, yeah.
I'm so glad Lina asked this, because I think this is where we stop when we are dealing with inclusion, and we don't think ahead. What she said is absolutely right. If we're going to open our doors to inclusive children, then we may have 5 kinds of neurodiverse children in our class. I think the most important solution that we all need to work towards is to work with their therapists and encourage the parent to go to a particular therapist, because if the parents don't acknowledge that the child has a particular need and has still not taken the child to a doctor or a therapist, then whatever you do in the school is going to be nullified. So it is very important to work with individual therapists also. The teacher should work with, if she has 5 such children, work with those 5 therapists to understand what she's doing in the classroom. Is it right? Is it wrong? And where she can change for that particular child. That is what I practice. And at a larger level, I create WhatsApp groups with the parent, the teacher, myself, and the therapist. So each child can be discussed there on that group about what we can do better, what we've done wrong, etc., etc. And that has helped a lot.
I think that's a great strategy, yeah. Yes, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Rashmi Kanakia from Pune.
I'm sharing an experience that I had with a little child who came with us in the play school with the spectrum. Once identified, we encouraged his parent to go to the counselor who told him to start occupational therapy. And what I thought with my team was that to understand how we could best give something positive to that child in our preschool, I saw to it that I went to the OT. We sat through a couple of sessions with the permission of the therapist and the parents. We saw to it that the shadow teacher also accompanied us, so that there were things that we could easily replicate at this preschool level, which was happening almost on a weekly basis at the therapy sessions. And today, I can proudly say that the little boy reads beautifully. There are some things that are still challenging him, but that's something that it's a very proud feeling.
Thank you so much. So now my question, again open. Manobi, you spoke about neurotypical parents not being accepting of the neurodivergent children, which comes a lot from a lack of awareness. Aditya kind of touched upon the fact that neurodiverse classrooms benefit all kids, and if we're looking at, empathy and emotional intelligence being the #1 superpowers for anyone moving forward, that this is the ideal place for that to sort of occur in a neurodiverse classroom. What's the sort of language we can use, the advocacy we can do, the communication we can have with neurotypical parents to have them be more accepting and understanding and embracing of inclusive practices?
Parents with neurodivergent children are already aware that their child is different, but the only problem is they do not accept it, isn't it? Even if we have a child who's very naughty, or maybe my child is not a good dancer if she's not taken for the annual function, I wouldn't agree that she is not a good dancer. Looking at my daughter's face, I would definitely want her to be on the stage, right? So we do not accept anything about our child, even if it is a usual child. But think about that parent who has a neurodivergent child. She's already struggling a lot at home and elsewhere. For that, the teachers need to be...
So my question is a little bit different. Right? My question is, what can we do in terms of communication with the neurotypical, not the neurodiverse, but the neurotypical parents to have them start embracing inclusion and neurodiversity as good for their own child?
We need to have workshops for them, because I had invited the director of NIPSIC herself to talk to all the parents in general, not only the neurodivergent child's mother or father, to the entire parent community in our school. Talk to each parent, and then the mother also feels included. She also feels excluded amongst all other mothers, because when we see the parents coming to pick their child at the gate, she's also being tagged. Uska mummy. So she also is sometimes looking at other mothers. Are they looking at me, or are they saying something about my child? So we have to encourage that parent. And few things which we teachers can do. Are we not mothers to those children who come to our school? So when I see many parents and mothers, especially break down in front of us, I just hold their hand once. Holding their hand makes a lot of difference. She thinks I'm with her, and I also tell her, articulate it and clearly tell that I am there with your child, don't worry. In fact, I have been able to develop a team who's very empathetic to the parents of the neurodivergent children. And time and again, we also conduct workshops for them. We call the special educators, the occupational therapists, speech therapists, and we ask them to narrate stories of children who have done wonders. Then the parents get encouraged to continue those therapies with the children. They become resilient if encouraged time and again. And we also give opportunity to those children especially, and small milestones which they achieve. We always record it and make sure that our teachers communicate it to the parents so they feel encouraged. And in this huge struggle, we should stand like a pillar with those parents.
Please add on.
I want to add one thing, real experience to this. When there's some especially adult children, they are coming to the school, we are focusing on that parent, giving them the counseling and all that, and we are focusing on the child who has a special adult capacity in this neurodiversity indications. But when I was talking to one of the therapists, one of the specialists in that, what he suggested, like, we are just focusing only on the problem, but we are not focusing on the problem creators. So in absence of, that children and in absence of that children's parents, please call the other parents also, have a counseling them, you have to be inclusive into this, and please make sure you could be also very encouraging to all that things, because by the time we are calling some, experts and they are talking to that parent, they are talking to that children, but they are not talking to those others who are creating actually problems in the school. But after that we realize that, and there are very much better results. Please talk to those also who are the trouble creators in the school.
So I would add to what Manobi said. What we practice during our annual days is that we invite schools who are differently, who treat differently able children. So it could be a deaf and dumb school, it could be a cerebral palsy school. So their children come and perform during our annual days. So I think that also has helped us for other parents to understand, to be very sensitive, because when these children perform, it's a different atmosphere altogether, and it helps us when these children are in our classrooms.
So wouldn't it be wonderful if, I always say that I have one biological child, but all the children of the world have to be my calming children. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all parents sort of started embracing that, how much more humane sort of our world could be? You want to add?
Yes. I think one point which we all missed, which you asked was, is there any communication lingos which we can use in the classroom which will really not make a special child feel special or the parents feel special? I think as an entire group, I think EC has taken this amazing initiative to start talking so openly about special needs and having panel discussions. In fact, Swati ma'am, I feel next time we should be having a specialized person to talk about what are the innovative lingos we can use in the classroom which is having an inclusive.
So the first thing is that we just mentioned we don't use special needs anymore.
Absolutely. I'm just like, if we can have, because most of the educators don't know what different lingos to use in the classroom.
That's why neurodiverse.
No, other than neurodiverse, how would you make a parent feel not left out by saying, a child is neurodiverse? Or like Manobi was mentioning that most of the moms feel left out because a teacher is going to go get that child in. Like, it is clearly, it is.
Because when we label children too much as hyperactive, as disruptive, these are the lingos that should be stopped being used. And as she said, call parents, talk to them. I'll tell you what problem she had, I had in my school also. People used to say, you are taking all special children only, or you need to remove them. And I used to ask only one thing to the mothers. If this was your child, what would you want me to do? Just that. And all the mothers changed and said, no, keep the child, keep the child. Make them feel that empathy towards their child. That is very important.
One of the most fascinating things I came across as I was reading about all of this is that ADHD actually could have been an adaptive response when we were hunter and gatherers. And I just found that so fascinating that, that's possibly why it hasn't come out of the gene pool yet, that there has to have been a reason for, I don't think the universe does anything without intelligence, so there must be a reason why, it happens.
Also, what I would like to add here, when we talk about other parents and the parents of the neurodiverse children, we also have to consider their rights. See, let's not get too carried away that we are only thinking of the rights of the children, inclusive children. If we have 40 children in the classroom and 5 have different needs, we have to think of the rights of the other 35 also. those parents also and those children also, and that is why open workshops with all parents are very important.
And we forget the high performing very often.
And in India there is no concept of gifted children.
Ma'am, and one more thing I just...
Because I worked with the Malaysian government on giftedness, and I was surprised. I said, "Kya India mein gifted children nahi hote hain?" And then I realized I must have been a gifted child because I was very naughty in the class. I was a backbencher, and maybe the teachers didn't understand me, and I must have been a gifted child. So we have to think of everybody's rights. This is a larger dialogue, and I'm happy Aditya said call experts. We had called experts, but they all dropped out last minute because of engagements. That's why you are on the panel, Aditya, because all experts dropped out.
So our title here is a lot kinder than Sandeep downstairs.
There was a question because which was...
नहीं, अच्छा बात किया मैंने.
Ma'am, there was a question because I was supposed to ask for an expert because when I was discussing about all these things, there was one thing, for at least if it had inclusive child has been identified, but you cannot put him in the normal kids for 3 to 8 years.
No. RT Act says you cannot differentiate now. Every child, sare inclusive children have to be in a normal classroom.
Okay.
RTE Act is against discrimination of children, and that's why a lot of mentally challenged children are facing difficulties. A lot of Asperger's children or those who are sensitive, sensorial sensitivity, are finding it very difficult to be in a normal classroom because of the noise, the amount of clutter, all that. So we have to rethink this on a policy level also.
Yeah. So at that, before I get shown the door, Swati, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I know I don't do enough as Vice President of the ECA, but I promise to do more.
I heard you donated something to somebody.
UC Davis.
Yeah, why don't you donate to ECA? They also do good work. Yeah. We need donation. हम लोग non-profit है.
Okay.
बहुत गरीब है हम.
Okay, so
just one point
yes.
I wanted to, when you mentioned about your visit to Australia and the doctor mentioned about it's not special and it's disabled. This word dis is always considered with a negative connotation. Disappointed. Yeah, that's one. I just wanted to put this. Yeah. So my whole concern was the disability, disappointment, disapproval. This is all negative. So I was just thinking, if on this platform and especially with ECA, if we can mention it as, because see, even the so-called special child or disabled child has many abilities. So if we can label them as differently abled instead of disability, I think we also could bring about some change in the parental perspective, teacher's perspective.
I'll have to go back and talk to Australian doctors and
the second point was that I think again ECA needs to think about this, that we need to also train our teachers to take care of such things in curriculum, in behavior and in emotions.
Okay, I hope you're minusing all that time from mine. So I'm going to finish off now. Thank you all very much. While I was reading material for the panel, I came across this Nobel Prize winning biologist, Gerald Edelman's model of the brain as an ecosystem. And he said the problem with talking about the brain as a metaphor takes you to it being working or broken. And a brain forest metaphor takes you to the beauty of diversity, how nutrients grow plants in the brain, about the forest and the resilience of the brain forest to regrow itself. With that, thank you so much, ECAs.
Thank you so much, Lina. That was a wonderful discussion. I too have a child who is gifted, and for me that sort of opened up the Please stay there as we felicitate you. I'd like to invite Deka ma'am and Swati ma'am to come forward to felicitate Lina ma'am.
On that note, before we end, is a way for us to take ma'am out of our vocabulary.
I agree with you.
It jumped out of my mouth out of habit. Thanks, Lina.
I must say a big thank you to Lina. I think it was very well conducted and so many points touched on. Wonderful, I like that.
We also have these lovely books that we would... Thank you, Reema and Nancy, and Reema and Nancy to visit Aditya. The lovely book launch, which is Lina on stage and Reema ma'am stay on stage. Lina, she's there, she is.